Hey guys, DG Thunder here, bringing you a deck guide today. Now, I don't do deck guides too often. I usually tend to bring them up when they're either really fun to play or when I legitimately think that they can fit in top tier of competitive play, because that's what I care about. I care about having fun playing the game, and I care about like the top level competitive aspect of the game. And this deck fits both categories very well. So let's see the deck here. This is King Hensel Specters. That's right. I saw the idea for this deck and I was like, that looks like fun, but it's probably really bad. I threw the deck together. I played a couple games, made like a couple tweaks, and then was constantly surprised at how well this deck did. And the thing about this deck is this is closer to like an old pre-homecoming Gwent deck than any homecoming deck that I've seen so far. Every piece of this deck is an important piece to how the deck plays. Like most decks since homecoming, you've got like your big plays, and then you've got your little trash which you kind of just throw out there whenever. Not so with this deck. Like every card has a purpose. Like even down to the very bottom, Damn Sorceress. It's one of your key ways to remove engines. Kedwenny Revenants, Trebuchets, they are your engine pieces to keep you in a long round. Even the Blue Stripe Scout, like, it's not essential, but it's quite easily an 8-point play at 4 provisions, which is extremely strong. Everything else here is, like, very, very important. So let's go over the main power plays that this deck brings, because even though everything is important, it still has the power plays to provide big, quick swings. First of all, you got Vernon Roach. Second of all, you have Blue Dream to replay Vernon Roach. Always going to be a big play, especially if you get it towards the end and you're pulling out the Kedwenny Knights. Massive plays. Then, obviously, we have King Hensel. He himself is a huge powered play. Then we have Count Codwell, and you can transform Codwell with a Cursed Knight, not only securing the fact that he's going to stay on your side of the board, but also putting him in the graveyard as a bronze card, which can then be resurrected with Necromancy. So you can play a 10-point card twice that way. And then, of course, the big finale, Sabrina's Inferno. Always so much fun when it goes off, and very often a lot of points. Another thing you'll notice, I play Kira in this deck. I'm normally not a fan of Kira. I think that 10 provisions for 2 points and thinning and tutoring is pretty expensive. Like, look at Roach. 3 free points and at 9 provisions. Whereas Kira, yes, she does tutor, but is 2 free points at 10 provisions. That's 1 less point, 1 more provision. You really need to get value off of that tutoring for her to be worth it. And in this deck, you do. Blue Dream, replay Vernon Roach, one of your big power plays. Like, it's essential that you're able to find that and pull it off. Kira helps you find it. Double Cross, it will pull Count Codwell for you, or if you have Codwell in hand, it will pull a Cursed Knight to transform Codwell. So Double Cross is essential to pulling off that combo. Kira can also help you pull off that. Then you've got Sabrina's Inferno, that's like your big long round finisher. She can grab that too. And lastly, but certainly not least, she can grab Necromancy. Pull Codwell from the graveyard as a Cursed Knight. Or, if you'd rather, you can grab one of your engine pieces, Blue Stripes Commando if they killed it and prevented you from getting that off. There's a lot of things that Kira can do in this deck, and it's so flexible too. You might also notice I'm playing Reinforcements. That's not just because of the buff to it, although that certainly helps. Reinforcements is there. Firstly, you can just grab another Cursed Knight. You're paying 6 provisions for 6 points, but you also get to protect one of your non-spectral units, putting it into spectral form so that Sabrina's Inferno won't hurt it. So that's pretty high value. That's about an 8-point play at 6 provisions. You can also grab a Reinforced Trebuchet. That's strong. You can also grab a Kedwenny Revenant, especially if like you start off the round, you play Kedwenny Revenant and then buff it up with Tactical Advantage, or if they're just not set up, like they don't have the Bloodthirst to play Pirate Captain and remove it. If you get a kill with your Revenant and get a second one out, and then they kill that second one, well now you've got one just sitting around, reinforcements on that, and you have another one with an activated, or with the Order ability ready again. Also, grabbing another Blue Stripe Scout, even grabbing another Damn Sorceress if you really need it for engine removal. Like, that's not ideal, but sometimes it is. If they lock your Blue Stripes Commando, you can create another one. That's pretty value too. Like, there's so much flexibility. Reinforcements and Necromancy both. You have a lot of flexibility about how you use them, and that flexibility adds a lot to their value. So, yeah. I legit think this deck is pretty strong. I've got 3 games to show you. So it's going to be a bit of a longer video. Feel free to, I don't know, watch at double speed if you want, or I'll have timestamps down below in the description, link to each game, and a brief description about the game. So you can skip to them if you want as well, but let's jump into the gameplay. Okay, so let's get into the first games. First things first, this is pre-recorded footage, and I am giving commentary onto it afterwards. And the reason for that is, firstly, so that I can cut out parts where there's a bit of a gap between plays to try to speed up the video as a whole, and also partially so that I can give the most insightful feedback into the strategy of how to play the deck, how to play against your opponent, etc. So first things first, this is a pretty straightforward mulligan. You drop the card that you want to pull from your deck, and you drop one of your lower value cards, and it looks like a pretty good hand. Definitely gonna start off with, so there I'm just double checking that the Spectral Knights are indeed the highest unit that Double Cross can pull them, so that I can protect Codwell, because I know against monsters they're likely to have a stronger unit than me. But given that they are, Double Cross can pull them, so I go ahead and I lead off with Codwell, because it's guaranteed that he's not going to go over to the enemy side when they have no units. So worst case scenario, they drop like Spear Tip now, and I immediately transform it before it can go over. That's not what happens though. They drop Neckers, and of course Garnicor's Fruit. So here I drop the Revenant. I'm not entirely sure this is correct. I think what I was thinking is, like, I want to be able to threaten the 1 strength units, like maybe if they have another Necker. Archospor's not 1 strength anymore. But if they did have another Necker, they couldn't just play it. They'd have to move right on to Drowner or something. I'm also potentially threatening, like, if they do drop a Drowner on that melee row, I can drop Sabrina and kill 3 Thrive units. It's not the best to use with Sabrina, but it's not too bad either. But all of that's relevant, because they drop Spear Tip, which threatens Codwell, so I immediately have to deal with that. So Double Cross, grab the Knight, transform Codwell. Can't mess around with that. So what that does do is that buys his Neckers and his Fruit time to get out of reach of most of my stuff, given that I don't have any Damn Sorceresses in my hand. He plays Wyvern, so even more Thrive on the board right now. But when it comes to Spear Tip, Vincent is really strong. Vincent against old Spear Tip is one of the most lopsided interactions in the game. Just like, I think it's 6 provisions being 1 more point than their 15 provision card. And the synergy with Revenants is absolutely insane. He's able to take out my Revenant. We're hit by a good bit. It's important to remember, though, that we have blue coin. Vest can take out the Necker. It's really strong. Also sets up for the Commandos next turn. So I think we're in a really good spot with that. Okay, he makes a pretty low tempo play. We drop the Commandos, we get them out. The thinning, the guaranteed thinning that you get from Vest and the Commandos is always so good. Always capitalize on that when you can. And yeah, looks like they give us the round. Notice how much we're up by. We're up by 19 points right there. We doubled their score that round. And we didn't even commit anything like too over the top to the round. We did play Codwell, we did play Vess, but nothing crazy. Like, we didn't use Henselt, we didn't use Sabrina's Inferno, and we didn't even use Vernon Roach. So we're in a pretty good spot. And also it just goes to show, like, raw power that this deck really has. So right here, we mulligan Necromancy to have a second spell in the deck. That way we're more likely to have a target if we pull Kira, either off of Vernon Roach or in the mulligans going into next round. We dry pass because we have Inferno in hand and we want a long round. Some people say Gurren Korra is strong in the long round, and while that's like kind of true, she's also equally strong, like split across 2 rounds, so better to just go with what I'm strong at, which is a long round with Sabrina's Inferno. So here we do draw Blue Dream, which is an important card. The reason I keep it in hand is because you don't want Vernon Roach pulling Blue Dream, because you want Blue Dream in hand so that you can kill Vernon Roach and then play Blue Dream. I thought about taking a mulligan here. It honestly probably was correct. It definitely would have been correct if I had another spell that wasn't Blue Dream. You also don't want Inferno coming out at the wrong time either, so it's good to hold on to Inferno as well. But it's overall just not the best situation, but yeah, because if Roach pulls Necromancy or Kira and Necromancy at the same time, then it would not be ideal. But we end up going to play Vernon Roach, and we get really lucky. Pulling Kira and not Necromancy. Which now means that we're going to be able to thin to 0, which is always really good. Especially since we also got one of our Kedwenian Knights. That gives us a Henselt target, and we definitely take that down. This means that the 2 last cards in our deck are both trebuchets. So next time we play Vernon Roach, we are playing 2 engines. So like as soon as they play something on that back row, we want to capitalize and pull out both of our trebs. So here I go ahead and I copy the Spectral Knight. This is just to transform as many of our units into Specters as possible, because we know that Sabrina's Inferno is coming up. The second Drowner, them having 2 Drowners this round is honestly pretty bad for them. I'd like to point out they have 9 cards left in their deck. And I think they got a little bit screwed over with not having some of their really strong cards. Like having 2 Drowners in hand and the Alpha Werewolf is not really ideal, even for a 10-card round. Chironex does cue us in that there's a good chance that they also run Unicorn. Some people run Chironex without running Unicorn. But there's a good chance that they do run Unicorn. Here we take the kill on Vernon because we kind of have to. And now Chironex is there on the back row. We know that we have good targets for our trebs. But as I was saying, them having Unicorn is potentially very dangerous, as it's a card that can buff Sabrina. So here we get Vernon, pull both of our trebs, and get those ticking. Enraged Ifrit. And finally transform the last of our non-engine cards into a Specter. So yeah, we are really well protected, and now they even kill our last non-Specter. So like, we're not going to take any damage as it is right now from Sabrina's Inferno, which is always really good. So here we use the Damn Sorceress to try to set up Sabrina's Inferno. It's always nice to have, like, I'm worried about Unicorn right now. If they have Unicorn that can buff Sabrina, then we won't be able to get Sabrina, kill Sabrina with Inferno, so it's good to have a backup so we at least get the 2 procs from Inferno. But they have the Crone to buff. They didn't find their other Crones, or at least haven't played them yet. And it's still possible, yeah, there's the other Crone. And it's still possible that the last card is Unicorn. But it's also important to point out, like, if the last card is Unicorn, we lose either way. So we might as well take the risk, hope it's not Unicorn, And sure enough, we get rewarded. Codwell, which is still a crap ton of points. With 5 thrives on the board, that's a 15-point play, but it just doesn't compare to this Inferno. 2 damage to all of their stuff, only 2 damage to my side of the board, and also proccing Sabrina. So many points. And we take the long round. Okay, so here we go against Eridan, which is always a scary leader. So yeah, our mulligans here, pretty straightforward. We drop the Kidwin Knight because we don't want it, and we also really want to try to get a Blue Stripes Commando. It's not necessary to have them in the first round, but it's always nice to be able to thin your deck out. And we also have a Blue Stripes Scout in hand, so getting that Commando as well would be really helpful. So we drop the damn Sorceress, and sure enough, boom, Commando. And this is a really good hand right here. We have the Commandos to thin, we have the Blue Stripes Scout to synergize with them, we have Double Cross for Codwell and the Knights in hand, and we also have a Trebuchet and even Vernon Roach, just in case we need it. Like, really good hand overall. And again, this is especially true against monsters. Always lead off with Codwell, because you don't want them playing something bigger, like Old Spear Tip, and preventing you from even playing Codwell in the first place. If you play him when he is the largest unit on the board, then you can transform him whenever they get a bigger one. So here they play Primordial Dow, which is 9 points, and luckily Roach lands on the back row for us, which is a target for our Trebuchet. Now I almost transformed Codwell here, but we actually don't need to. There's, like, yes, that's threatening to become bigger than Codwell, but we might as well get the Trebuchet out and start ticking away on Roach now, and we can always transform Codwell later. There is no rush so long as you get it done before the end of the round. So, our engine's out, that's ticking. Our opponent from the last game sends it to GG, which is nice. And he drops an Archospore. It does hit our Treb. I mean, if he has another Archospore, he could kill it. Like, Drowner's going to disable it anyways. But we can buff it up just to be safe. I don't really want to buff up the Commando, because then it could be susceptible to Tall removal. He could also just Cyclops the Dow into it, which would be good value then. But right now, Cyclopsing the Dow into it is really not good value. He doesn't really have any good way to remove that Commando, unless he has, like, Chiron X or the Enraged Ifrit. So he plays his Crone, buffing the Dow, which now threatens to steal Codwell. So we just transform him casually and pull out our other Commando. And next turn we have the Scout. Our Treb finished killing Roach, which does mean we're not getting any more value over time. But also notice we're like double their points, 18 to 34. Not quite double, but pretty close. So yeah, he had an 8-point play. We also have an 8-point play here. Just a trade back and forth. Really, really good whenever you can get that 8-point value off of your 4 provision Blue Stripe Scout. And we're really far ahead, and we haven't even committed a ton to this round. We played Codwell, and we played like a Trebuchet, and now he plays low-tempo Neckers, going down by quite a lot. And I think in hindsight, this was not the correct play, although it ended up working out great. But dropping Vernon Roach there is an overcommitment, I think. It's just like we were already ahead by a lot, didn't need to just overkill it. I was afraid that he would have Spear Tip and just like take it in one big card, and you do always have to be afraid of that, to be fair. But there comes a point at which you don't want to like super overcommit. And it turns out he had Gimpy Gerwin, which, especially with the Necker triggers, that's 5 points on his side of the board, minus 9 points on my side of the board. That's a 14-point play. That's a huge swing. But it's still not enough. Like, notice even if he plays Spear Tip here, he gets 12 points plus 2 Thrive counters, and that's only 14, and the Treb's still ticking. So he ends up playing his Crone, and then another card. In fact, he actually ends up wasting a card here He throws out the spores for 4 points, which ties it, but then Trev, of course, takes it back. He also has a werewolf, and he could have just dropped the werewolf like he does here, and he would have been up by 1 point after my Trev ticked, and he could have just passed. I'm not sure if he wasn't sure that if the Trev would tick an extra time or not. But yeah, so he ended up losing a card there. And I think the opponent there made a classic mistake of like seeing a ton of value on Gimpy, but not actually having a win condition or a path to winning the round after playing Gimpy. But he just saw so much value. He was like, this must be correct. Played Gimpy and it was a ton of value, but it still wasn't enough to take the round. So I think I made a mistake by overcommitting and he made a mistake by staying in. So the opponent is down 3 cards here in round 2, and they still decide to play. And we see later, the reason for that is a Morntart deck. Morntart decks always want to play, get as many cards in the graveyard as possible, so that Morntart's as big as possible. So I decide not to like go too in. I play a card that gets me just above what they played, and also sort of helps set up if they do continue to play. And sure enough, they keep playing. Yeah, but they're playing pretty low tempo. Like the Arcaspore ended up being 4 points with the Death Wish, and the Brewis is only 5 points. And here I decide to take the tie. I'm up by enough cards that if they pass here and I spend one more card, that's totally fine. I'm still up by 2 cards. But no, they play Morntart. They're going all in. They want to get their cards back. They want to go into a relatively even round 3. So that's their plan. Of course, I have to take Blue Dream here before Morntart eats Vernon Roach. Could argue that I should have taken Spear Tip from that. Not sure exactly what was correct. But the Trebuchet is really nice, and also getting the second, Revenant isn't all that great. And so yeah, they also drop a big 10-point body on top of that. So I need 20 points. The Treb's ticking for a couple. What I do right there with that ping is I set it up so that the Brewis will be at 1 strength on my next turn because the Treb's going to hit it. And we take our 10-point res, which we have, thanks to Codball. Now that the Brewis is at 1 point, we have a double tick on Sabrina's Inferno. And Sabrina's Inferno at this point in the game, it's never going to be great. So going ahead, playing Kira now to thin it out of the deck is good. We get some thinning down. It's not going to be a good card next round, so getting rid of it is fine. Absolutely fine. And it is enough thanks to Vernon Roach being a 3. He takes 2 damage. He's now perfect for the Revenant. And we end up winning by 2 points, and we have 2 extra cards. So the reason I show this game is not like, wow, look at me demolish this player who kind of didn't play the best. It's more to point out like the big point swings that you can get with this deck. Like they had Morntart into Goliath, and I was still able to counter pretty well. The 10-point res off of Codwell is really strong, and then just add that in combination to the Revenants, really adds a lot. So here we have an extra card in our deck because we actually never used Hensel this game, and we can't use Hensel this game. I think the last chance we had to use Hensel was on a Kid Winning Night, but I ended up transforming it because I was expecting to play Vernon Roach again in round 3, pulling the last one out. So here I just make my proactive plays that I can. And he's also playing some pretty low value stuff. I maybe could have just thrown out Sabrina here. I ended up playing Vincent, but he also has Spear Tip Asleep, which would have been a huge Vincent target. Thankfully, it doesn't really matter. But maybe correct to just drop Sabrina there, save Vincent, see if we get a bigger target, and finish the round in style. Off the Sabrina proc, we didn't need it, but you know, it's fun. And so yeah, take the game. Alright, so here we go with a game against Ethne. Right off the bat, we have a rough hand. Not only do we have 3 mulligans that we need to take, but even after taking those 3 mulligans, we still don't have access to a Spectral Knight or a Blue Stripes Commando, which is really rough. We do have Codwell, but we don't really want to play Codwell because we risk losing him. Necromancy's going to be dead this round, probably. Blue Dreamon's probably going to be dead. We make one of the only proactive plays that we can, which is the Revenant. And I do decide to buff it up because that's at least going to require like one of their few tall removals. But especially with Ethne, it's really easy for them to do 3 damage. So here we see a missing Witcher, which evokes a emote. But they also play in the back row, which lets us set up an early trap, which is so important. That trap's going to be providing value every turn, and they kill it. It probably would have been correct to play my other trap right here. I was thinking, like, you know, the 3 points that I get from the Revenant's more important, but I'm not going to be able to trigger the Revenant every turn. I might as well just sit on the 8-point Revenant, play the trap now, and use the damn Sorceress later to enable the Revenant. I mean, this way is okay, too. So they kill the damn Sorceress, which prevents me from killing her myself and getting another Revenant. So I just set up a Treb. I realize that that Revenant's probably going to die. We get a lucky ping onto Lambert, and if the Revenant doesn't die, we'll have another ping, or another kill. And yeah, for some reason they just play crap. Looks like they only have 2 elves in hand, which is kind of ridiculous. I mean, we know one's a Witcher, and then there's 3 other cards. I don't know, they just seem to be playing oddly here. And also, I'm mostly out of cards to play. Like, I can't play Double Cross. It gives Codwell, and that's a bit risky. I could play Vernon, but I end up deciding to go for the Reinforced Trebuchet. I think the only other play that I really have right here is Vernon Roach. Also, notice that's a misplacement because I just gave them good Arrakis value, or Arrakis Venom value, with Roach in the middle there. But it doesn't matter. They go ahead and pass. They give it to us. It played really odd. Almost felt like they were just throwing away garbage that first round. And I think their low tempo plays sort of lulled me into a bit of a sense of security. I ended up playing the second round here because I want to try to get some of these like, we got 2 good things that can help set up for later. We've got the Blue Stripes Commandos, which we can thin out of our deck, which would be really nice. And we also have Codwell, which we can hopefully transform, since Double Cross is pulling a Spectral Knight, which is going to enable a really high-value Necromancy later, which would also be really nice. But they have some pretty high-value responses to both of these. They lock my Commando, and against Codwell, like, I'm still hoping, like, okay, well, I can still get, you know, good Necromancy value. But no. You can't get Necromancy value off Codwell if he dies right away. So right now I'm down on cards. I have to decide, like, if I fight for cards here. I took a while to think there. You might have noticed the skip in the music. If I try to fight for cards here, I'm not going to have a long round, and I need a long round for Sabrina's Inferno to get value. So I end up deciding to pass, going into the next round down a card. But I think that it's more important to have good value on Sabrina's Inferno. So I ended up dropping the double cross there because it's the last spell. We pulled Kira, so drop double cross and she'll pull that out for us. And we need to do that before we play Vernon Roach. And we also want to try to thin out this last commando. So I'm going to Necromancy my commando, since I don't have a 10 strength Spectral Knight to Necromancy. Drop it in the front row to try to avoid the Bowmen. And they make a really interesting call here. I was expecting them to kill this guy, probably. But they decide to leave it alive, and we'll see why in a bit. So there's the Bowman. If I played that on the back, it would have just died. We get to play this guy, pull out a lot of stuff, and yeah, now there's a lot of units on that front row, which is actually exactly what my opponent wants. So you see here the tell, the 1, 2, 3, 4. This is pretty clearly a Regis setup, and I think I noticed this right about now as well. I had played against Regis not actually too many games before this. So Kira Metz into Double Cross is guaranteed to pull the Kedweni Knight, which is just like 8-point play, or sorry, 10-point play playing Kira, and enables Henselt for another 12. Just like so many points. 22-point play in total with my leader. So with the Regis setup on the front row, the goal now is to play everything on the back row and to Spectral protect the units on the back row while we just leave the front row because they're going to die to Regis anyways. Aileron comes out. That's not really a big deal. She's only really worth 3 points, assuming we get a double Sabrina's Inferno off. And right now, just all these low value elves on the board, like they're all going to get devastated by Sabrina's Inferno. So they move one of my Spectral Knights. That is unfortunate. As things stand right now, he'll end up taking 5 damage and be left at 1 strength. But I mean, they're going to have some movement. That's to be expected. So that was a misplacement on Vernon Roach. I should have put him on the front row, anticipating the Sabrina and even the Vess. But I have to play Vess on the front row, putting her in the Regis lane, so I can kill Vernon Roach, because she has a reach of 2. But she's the only card that can kill Vernon Roach, unless I had placed him in the front lane and also gotten the Sabrina damage on him, or if I used Vincent on him, which also kind of feels bad. So a little skip ahead again. The opponent moves Kira, which I think is the weirdest choice. I guess it's just sort of insurance in case I kill my own 1 strength. They can just ping Kira down to 1 as a backup plan. But yeah, I'm not complaining. Grab Regis or grab Vernon Roach again. And now with this damn sorceress, I actually decide to kill the Elven Swordmaster. I know that the Sabrina ping was going to take it down to 1 strength, so it's kind of like a 1-point ping. But I just really don't want that single ping being there to potentially line up another Regis on the back row if he can get more value that way. And I go ahead and I kill Sabrina now because I want to make sure that there's no sort of like buff or anything like that that can make it hard for me to kill Sabrina. They kill my Revenant, which makes sense, and I get my last backline unit turned into a Specter, so now the whole backline is Specters, and they go ahead and drop Regis, so like all those points that I had early game, they're all gone. I only have 1 point left on the front row, but like all of their points from all of the whole game, or the whole round, are also gone. Like, I take no damage from the Sabrina's Inferno. I paused for a second because I was thinking about whether I wanted to drop Vincent first. I decided it's probably not correct. Like, all those points that they had, boom, down to 3. And I didn't take a single point of damage from that. Like, that's the power of Sabrina's Inferno. And, like, they have Lacerate, but they're still down by, 13 points when you factor in the 3 pings from Ethne. Drop Vincent. He can't even damage anybody, but it doesn't even matter. Like, they're all gone after that Inferno. There is nothing left of the Scoia'tael army. And yeah, that's it. I thought it was really interesting that, like, they pulled off this big Regis, and yeah, I identified it and started playing around it, but, like, Sabrina's Inferno was just so much more potent than their Regis. So, yeah. And there we go. That's the game.